detail the journey that you went on to write this book and why it's of concern to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I started traveling to the Congo 5 years ago. I've been doing research on slavery and child labor for about 20 years, traveling all around the world, documenting slaves and child labor.
Siddharth Kara is the name.
And this came across my radar maybe 7 years ago. People started talking in the field about cobalt. Cobalt's in the batteries. It's in the Congo. The conditions are horrible. And I had no idea. I'd never heard of this. So I started planning to take trips to get down there.
This shit's
and
fucked.
I took my first trip back in 2018. My plan was I thought I would try to lay the groundwork to do some academic research. And the things I saw there were so appalling and heart-wrenching and urgent that I changed my approach. I thought people need to know about this. I need to write a book. And so I started planning more trips, and I just kept going back. And the reason this is important, Joe, and we can dig into this in more depth, throughout the whole history of slavery, I mean, I'm going back centuries, never in human history has there been more suffering that generated more profit and was linked to the lives of more people around the world, ever in history, than what's happening in the Congo right now. And the reason I say that is this. The cobalt that's being mined in the Congo
is in fucking everything.
Is in every single lithium-ion rechargeable battery manufactured in the world today. Every smartphone, every tablet, every laptop, and crucially, every electric vehicle. So
just to I guess give myself a point of reference here, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's 20 fucking devices in my house that use lithium ion or cobalt batteries.
You and I, we can't function on a day-to-day basis without cobalt, and 3/4 of the supply is coming out of the Congo.
That's wild.
And it's being mined in appalling, heart-wrenching, dangerous conditions. And so that's why people need to know, because by and large, the world doesn't know what's happening in the Congo.
It's something that people sort of know peripherally, that, that they call them conflict minerals, and, they know that they're coming from an area of the world that's very poor, but I don't think people are aware of how horrible it is. There have been some documentaries that have been done on it, and they're all terrifying.
Yeah, so conflict minerals was phase 1, and that's actually not cobalt. What does it refer to? Conflict minerals? So conflict minerals, also called the 3TG minerals, are tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold. And those are in the eastern Congo. And that catastrophe started around the year 2000, late 1990s, 2000, shortly after the Rwandan genocide. The militias moved in, and the eastern Congo is sitting on some of the largest reserves in the world of those 3TG minerals, especially tantalum. And those are all used in microprocessors. And you can think back to, around the year 2000, mobile phones first started coming out and gaining traction. I still remember my little StarTAC flip phone that I had from Motorola. You remember that?
Sure.
And all that supply was coming out of eastern Congo. Militias and warlords were forcing the local population at gunpoint, machete point, to dig this stuff out, and it was flowing up into the formal supply chain, into mostly those first-generation cell phones. And that became known as conflict minerals. Cobalt started later. Cobalt really took off about 10, 12 years ago. And it's in another part of the country, in the mining provinces in the southeast of the Congo. And cobalt took off because it was started to be used in lithium-ion batteries to maximize their charge
So, Jason.
and stability. And it just so happens that the Congo, just as it was sitting on more than half the world's reserves of coltan and, of course, a lot of gold and diamonds and other things, is sitting on more cobalt than the rest of the planet combined.
Yep.
And it's in a small little patch of the Congo, southeastern corner, a part that used to be called Katanga. And before anybody knew what was happening, Chinese government, Chinese mining companies took control of almost all the big mines, and the local population has been displaced, is under duress, and they dig in absolutely subhuman, gut-wrenching conditions for $1 a day, feeding cobalt up the supply chain into all the phones, all the tablets, and especially electric cars.
So, quick pause. That's a fucking insane picture. But something else that I was reading about the other day is how these Chinese officials are basically moving like millions of Chinese, I guess, lack for a better term, like immigrants from China into Africa to build these like cities, right? But these cities, since these African nations don't have the infrastructure to like really repel this Chinese flood of like immigration, I guess, basically like there's no like they don't have the infrastructure to tell them to go away. So basically these Chinese bureaucrats and businessmen are like creating these mega cities in which to like not only house but also harvest and like extract all these rare earth minerals from Africa and like tree like woods and things like that, and basically just like extort all of these people that are in Africa, basically like to the way higher degree than like France is doing right now. Basically, China was like, all right, we're going to do what France is doing, but we're just going to do it bigger. And we're just going to put a lot of people there. So, like, I don't know if he talks. I don't know if he talks about it in this clip, but it kind of walks in
Jamie,
tandem.
what is this? The mines?
This is his video. So I think so.
This is so crazy to see.
That's just
This
just people.
is the
That's
bottom of the
so
supply chain
nuts.
of your iPhone, of your Tesla, of your Samsung. I mean, I'm just naming those companies.
Right.
It's all of them, right?
Yeah, exactly, Kyle. Like, the Chinese government is fucking crazy, bro. Like, case in point, right now, they have all of these Uyghur Muslims that they've, like, rounded up, which is, like, I guess this, like, different sect of Islam. And basically, they rounded up all these people. They rounded up, like, a couple million of these people that lived in China. And they were like, hey, good news. We can either shoot you in the head or you can go and pick crops and we'll let you live, but you're going to be our slaves. And so they rounded up like 500,000 people and put them in this little bitty province, and all they do is like pick, harvest, and refine cotton. That's all they do for 24 hours a day. It's the most depressing shit I've ever fucking seen in my life, bro. I was like, when I was reading about it, like, dude, it fucking hurt my ass. I don't know. It's they're fucking
We're not
nuts
just
over
picking
there,
on
dude.
them. And here's what you need to know, Joe, about this video. I was the first outsider to get into this mine, and that's why it's just a really short video that I was able to take. This
That is
an industrial
fucking
cobalt
crazy.
mine where there's not supposed to be one artisanal miner. Now, that's the term used for people who are just digging by hand as opposed to tractors and excavators. There's not supposed to be one here. That's what the story is told at the top of the chain. This mine, and I can name it, it's called Shabara. There's not supposed to be one artisanal miner here, according to the consumer-facing tech companies and EV companies buying this cobalt. Lo and behold, I walk into this place, and this is what I see. There's more than 15,000 human beings.
Dude, okay, hold on. Let me move my camera out of the way really quick. Let me move my camera out of the way. Bro, look at this. Hold on. Let me move all this out of the way. Like, this is just pallets of material. and there's just like it's mind-boggling.
Beings crammed into that pit, digging by hand. And if you have sound, you hear the mallets, you hear the shouting, you hear the grunts. It's a mass of humanity. You might expect to see a scene like this.
So there's a term that gets used, clean cobalt.
There's no clean cobalt.
It's not real.
No. It's all marketing. It's all PR. It's a fiction. Just like that place, there's not supposed to be any artisanal mining there. It's all done industrially. That's the story told at the top of the chain. And people assume, I mean the marketing teams at big tech and EV companies assume, well, who's going to go down there and actually walk into the place and grab a video that shows, no, it's actually all raw human force.
Yeah, it's just basically
just clanking that cobalt out of the ground.
Basically, it's just, hey, round up as many people that live in like a third world portion of this country, and then pay them as little as possible, and then just more or less force them up against this mineral and be like, either it's the mineral or you. That's what you do. That's your life now.
So there's no clean cobalt. There's not a single company on planet Earth that makes a device that has a rechargeable battery.
It's basically all China. It's
that can
almost
reliably and
exclusively
justifiably
China. Yeah, exactly.
claim that their cobalt isn't coming from sources like that. And that's the truth that needs to get out there. That's the truth people need to understand, because this is a story that goes back generations. There's these fictions told at the top of the chain about what conditions are like at the bottom. And truth seekers have to go find that truth and enlighten civilization so that people get agitated about it and want to do something about it. So there's no clean cobalt. Let's just make that totally abundantly clear. And anyone that claims otherwise is either peddling in falsehoods or is recklessly ignorant of the truth.
Are there any industrialized cobalt mines that use machinery and don't use slavery and don't use child labor and don't use these people that live in unimaginable poverty?
I've never seen one. And I've been to almost all the major industrial cobalt mines. Here's why I say that. Number one, they all or almost all will have scenes like that on them. Thousands of individuals clanking away for $1 or $2 a day, okay? They don't have safety equipment, all that stuff. That cobalt's toxic to breathe. And they're breathing it in all day.
No masks.
No
filtration
no
systems.
gloves, half those guys are in flip-flops. All right? So almost all the industrial mines will have scenes like that. So that's number one. They'll say there are no artisanal miners there, no children there. And if you zoom in, you'll see that amongst that sea of humanity, there are thousands of kids, teenage boys in this case, because that requires a certain amount of force to clank away in that pit. Number two.
Can't confirm. They were real
There
careful.
are hundreds of other...
They were really careful about us touching cobalt in college. Yeah, I bet. I mean, like he's saying, if you're over there hammering and dust is flying up and all that, just particulate matter that's going in your lungs, it's not meant to go in, your body is not... Dude.
There are artisanal mining sites scattered in the mining provinces, outside of industrial mines.
It's just fucked, for
artisanal
lack
miners
of a better
in
term.
the industrial mines. And then just on the other side of the fence, there'll be a sea of humanity digging there as well, because it's not like at the fence the ore body stops. There's copper, cobalt, other things outside as well. So there'll be hundreds of sites where there are hundreds of thousands of people across the mining provinces digging. All that production is sold right back to the industrial mining companies. So it enters their supply chain as well. And then so they take what they extract with industrial equipment, artisanal miners inside the mine, artisanal miners, including children, outside the mine. It all gets dumped together into the same batch of acids to process and then flows up the chain. And again, no one can reasonably claim that their cobalt, even if they say that industrial mine totally clean, don't believe what Siddharth is saying. That's a made up fake video. They can't demonstrate
It's a pretty fucked up
reliably
made
that
up video.
all the other cobalt being dug up by kids in thousands of sites across the mining provinces isn't also flowing into their supply chain.
Is there another source of cobalt in the world that's ethically supplied?
So last year, 2021 is the last year there's data, about 72%, almost 3/4 of the world's supply of cobalt came out of a small patch of the Congo. And then there's like 3% Russia, 3% Australia, 3% Morocco. There's everyone else is 3%. And I don't know what the conditions are there. I imagine in Australia, mining follows standards of dignity and decency and labor and sustainability and so on. But there's not enough cobalt outside of the Congo to meet demand. And demand projections are 400, 500, 600% increase in cobalt demand in the next decade or two, primarily being driven by adoption of electric vehicles. Each battery pack in an EV requires up to 10 kilograms of refined cobalt. That's 1,000 times what's required for a smartphone. So huge demand as the world transitions from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, which is a net good thing, except for the people in the Congo. So there's not enough other cobalt out there. Even if all the non-Congo cobalt was perfectly sourced, there's not enough other cobalt out there to meet demand.
These companies that we talked about that use all this stuff, whether it's electric vehicle companies or cell phone manufacturers, obviously they're aware of this.
Yes, no question. They have to be.
Have they made any attempts to mitigate this in any way?
The truth, Joe, is no, not sufficient efforts. Most of what is done is PR statements, marketing. All these companies will say, we have zero tolerance policies on child labor.
Right.
We ensure standards of dignity and human rights for every member of our supply chain, down to the mining level. They'll all say this, down to the mining level. And they say it. And they may throw some money at the odd NGO or coalition or alliance that's meant to be working on these things. Nothing's actually happening on the ground. And that's what my book will demonstrate. As I take the reader on the journey from place to place, mine to mine, there's this fiction that exists outside of the Congo of what companies are doing and what the conditions are like. And then there's the reality. Underneath those layers of obfuscation, there's the reality. There's the truth on the ground. And not one company, not one business alliance, not one entity up the chain is doing remotely enough to ensure that the dignity and human rights of the people of the Congo, not to mention the environment, because all the mining companies there are just polluting and clear-cutting forests to build and expand mines. They're not doing nearly enough to respect the people and earth of the Congo, while we outside enjoy our, renewable, gadget-driven lifestyles.
So it's of course they're not fucking doing anything to change it. That's their fucking bottom dollar. It's all, that's the bulk of modern PR anyway, right? Like, it's all just like, rules for thee, not for me. Like, I'm gonna do anything I can as a big business to manipulate and get my fucking money. I'm not gonna do shit to actually help anybody, right? And it's like, I think we've all heard horror stories of like Nike and their like child sweatshops in China where they pay them like 15 cents an hour with no bathroom breaks, like, so you can have a pair of Jordans and shit. Or like all these things, like everything that we consume or that we have any kind of interaction with, more than likely is made at the expense of some third world country indigenous person who's trying to make enough money so they can go buy a sack of rice when they get off work and feed their family for a couple days. So of course they're not gonna fucking do anything. They don't give a shit. It's out of sight, out of mind. They don't give a fuck. But like, it would probably be a pretty safe assumption to say like that's fucking anything that is made, manufactured, refined outside of the United States, and there's probably even some fucking exemption within the United States. So again, everything around us, like in our homes, like what we're looking at this through right now, more than likely, it's probably a really safe bet to say that the components, parts, and manufacturing required to give us this comes off the back of some indigenous person who is living in what we would probably identify as like a literal hell. And so it's really good that this guy is getting access to a massive platform as the Joe Rogan Experience, and hopefully more will come of it, and hopefully like there's something to be done. But here's the paradoxical aspect of this. So again, like, don't condone this. It's horrible. It's inhumane. It's every bad word in the dictionary. But here's another like really, really fucked up aspect of this whole like capitalist free market aspect of exporting or outsourcing workers is basically, yeah, it's fucked up and it's horrible and it's humane that these people are doing this thing so that me, you, and everybody else can watch Joe Rogan talk shit. But if you took this away, then what? Because like there's no infrastructure in place to like, or safety net for any of these people anyway. I mean, like there's a reason why they're doing this, right? There's a reason why these people are going and working in this fucked up, awful work conditions, because it's probably better off than going and joining some warlord who's going to cut a bunch of people up or go and fucking sell drugs or, you know, like do something else. And perhaps it's too difficult to go out and like live any kind of sustainable life with things like this going on with mass industrialization. So like, what's the fucking counterpart? Because just as much as this is like a really interesting talking point of, yeah, this is really fucking bad and these people shouldn't be treated this inhumanely and these people shouldn't be living in these standards, the other side of the fucking coin is, yeah, what the fuck else is going to go on in these really small nations that don't have any infrastructure and are decades behind even the smallest first world country? I don't know. It's interesting. It's really fucked up. It's really hard to watch. It's really hard to listen to. I wish I knew what the answer was. Or perhaps the answer is what I just said. I don't know.